Hey guys, Kenny here from K&R Motorsports with another edition of Exotic Car DIY, or as my wife likes to say, flip-flop garage, whatever. I'm in Florida, so I always wear those, so just ignore that. You can make comments making fun of me about me if you want. I don't care. The e63, you can see mine is lowered on H&R springs. The H&R dropped it a little bit further than I like. They say that you get about 3/4 of an inch drop with these. It's actually closer to 2. So your other options are coilovers. Anyway, it does look good. It's just a little lower than I like. But what happens when you lower these cars is you get a lot of negative camber, which wears out the inside of the wheel. So you basically have a couple options. Drive it like that and just blow through tires, or take it to a shop to align it. And spoiler alert, they can't align these things. Basically, they can only set the toe. The other option is take it to a Mercedes dealership. They have the option of putting in the adjustment bolts. The adjustment bolts allow for only about 0.2 of a degree of camber and caster. And then the third option is you can buy bushings from companies like K-Mac. K-Mac makes adjustable bushings. I use those actually on my E55 and it worked very well. I was able to get it from almost 2 3/4 inches of negative camber down to 1.5, which was much more manageable. The only problem with the K-Mac bushings is they cost literally an arm and a leg. So today we are going to try something on this. We're going to try the Mercedes adjustment bolts, and I got a little trick that you can try on yours if you're trying to get the camber in check. The tools we're going to be using, I can't even pronounce that, Tuholsen Automotive. These are the alignment plates. It's a very simple system, comes with just a degree gauge, some plates that are designed to just for the adjustments, and it's pretty simple. The only other thing you're going to need besides just basic tools is I use linoleum tiles, 2 of them together with some grease, and that allows you to be able to move the wheels, and also when you go up and down on the car, it allows the suspension to fully go back to its original setting instead of being stuck, you know, when you put it back in the ground. So anyway, let's get this one up on the lift, and we'll go ahead and get started and show you how to align these things. Okay, so the first step is to take your baseline. We have the car up on the, I'm just using the front pucks. That keeps the back end on the ground so we don't have to worry about it moving around. We've got the wheels already on the slip plates, and that makes it really easy to turn the wheel. And because these are coil springs in the front, you really don't have to worry about the airmatic messing around. So one thing I found, even though I have a power troweled garage floor with self-leveling epoxy, it is really hard to find a flat spot. So if you're using these, what I would recommend is get a level and place the alignment plate on the level and zero it out. And so now what we're going to do is we're simply going to take the measurements. So I'll switch hands here real quick. You want to make sure you place it evenly straight through the center axis, and we can get our reading. So right now, because this car's lowered, we're at 2 degrees negative camber. So now we can go check the other side. Okay, and this side, surprisingly showing not as far off, about 1.5 degrees. All right, so now we're going to move on to caster. Caster is a little bit more difficult, but it's really not that bad. Basically, following the instructions, you're going to want to make a line on the ground at 8 inches out. They want you to just leave this plate in the ground. I prefer just put masking tape. Normally I use blue, but I can't find it right now. So what we're going to do is now we're going to take this guy. See how he's this angled piece right here? We're going to put him on the wheel, turn him till he hits till that lines up exactly with that line. And then we're going to zero out our gauge and then turn it back to the other side and then multiply the number by 2. So here, let me show you. All right, so now we've turned the wheel until when you line this up, see how this is angled? When you look straight down through it, you'll see it on the line. That's how you know you're at the right distance. And you don't have to be super precise, but just get as close as you can. Now we're going to zero out our gauge again, put it on the wheel, and measure our camber again. And what we're going to do is once we're got the camber, make sure you're dead center with that Mercedes symbol. Zero out the gauge again. Verify it's zeroed out. And then you're going to turn it back around till it's at that line the other direction. All right, go ahead and let it turn, buddy. You can turn all the way to the right. Just keep turning right. It's going to get hard. A little more. Tiny bit more. And that's perfect, buddy. Now hold it right there. Don't let it move. Okay, so we've gone back 20 degrees the other way. We're going to go right down the middle of the line here. And the caster value I am reading, just to make sure I'm actually there. The gauge says 4.2, 4.25. Let's just call it 4.25. Now you're supposed to double that value. So, all right, put the car up on a lift, guys, so you can kind of see what all the adjustments are. Your tie rods. This is a 15/16. Might convert to metric, but whatever. This was a 21 millimeter and then a 13 millimeter. You can break that loose and just righty-tighty, lefty-loosey to do the adjustment there. Same thing on this side. The next adjustment, these main thrust, arms or whatever they call them, are they primarily do the caster. So when you adjust this in or out, the wheel moves in or out, and you can adjust the caster from both of them. Here is primarily the camber. Obviously, looking at the wheel, if you make the bottom of the wheel go out, you're going to get more negative camber. If you make it come in, you're going to get less negative camber. So by moving this over, we're able to drop it by the it was only about 0.15 degrees, so you didn't really get a whole lot of adjustment. When I say primarily, when you mess with this, it will affect caster slightly. When you mess with this, it will affect the camber slightly. So you got to factor that into your adjustments and realize that if you nail the camber with this and then you adjust this, you're going to mess your camber up just a little bit. So you're going to have to go back and forth to kind of tweak it to eventually get it right. And then once you're all done, then you just set the toe and you're done. So here is our lower control arm for the camber adjustment. We've removed the stock bolt. As you can see, it's just a plain round bolt. Now, Mercedes designed these with this little X shape. So what we're going to do is we got one of those bolts I showed you earlier. It has this notch in there. Also has a notch right here. So what it's going to allow us to do is when we stick it in here, go all the way through, we can actually move up to that far. So it's not a whole lot of adjustment, but we're going to see what we get out of it. Let's go ahead and try to install it. We've got the bolt installed, and we now possess the ability to adjust it by about that much. So what we're going to do is, since the top of the wheel is too far in and the bottom of the tire is too far out, we're actually going from the stock position where the control arm is out and bringing the control arm in. That'll bring the bottom of the tire closer to the center of the car, which will allow there to be less camber. So we got 2 degrees before. We'll see what we get after. And then these little washers that it comes with give you the ability to lock it into place. We've finished putting in the just one bolt, just for the base of the camber adjustment. If you remember before, we were at 2.05, and now after that camber bolt, it got us down to... So we're on day 2 of the alignment. Yesterday I finished the alignment and I was able to get the car from using the Mercedes adjustment bolts. I was able to get it from only from 2.05 degrees, so just a tick over 2 degrees of negative camber on this side, only down to about 1.9. So it really didn't change it a whole lot. The spec is 1.45. So I'd really like to get it closer to the factory spec. Now the reason I'm struggling with this is because the car is lowered on H&R springs, and that just inherently will give you a lot of negative camber, and which in turn will wear on my inside of my tires, and since they're new, I don't want to destroy a new set of Michelins. So I got another idea. In this part, if you have a stock car and you're just using this video for an alignment, you can ignore this part. If you're lowered and you're trying to find ways to align the car and get it into spec, this should help. So when you remove the shock, there are two bolts that you have to loosen. This one and that one. They're the bolts from the main shock assembly to the knuckle. And what happens is there's no guidance by Mercedes how to tighten these bolts. It just says 180 Newton meters. But here's the thing. There is a little bit of play on these, on the holes here. You can kind of see it here if I push up and down. Right now they are loosened. So if you look, that's hanging out and that's pushing in. So if I show you on the other side of the car, where I still have the wheel done. So I have loosened the bolts, so they're loose. That's why it's going to move. If I push on the top of the tire, you can see that there's quite a bit of play. So if you think about it, if I tighten it here, I'm going to have a lot of negative camber. If I tighten it here, it's going to have less camber. So the goal is to tighten the bolts, let them sag like this, and then tighten them like that. Okay, so check this out. So yesterday, like I said, we did the alignment. I was getting about 1.5 on this side, and on the other side I was getting 2.05, 2.1. And so I just performed that, I don't know what you call it, the strut to knuckle bolt adjustment. And so now on this side, the passenger side, we're getting a 1.4, which is right at spec, even a little bit, tiny bit below it. And then on the driver's side, which was 2.0, 2.15 before, we just nailed out a 1.45. So that is dang perfect, if you ask me. So I'm pretty happy with the result. Now I'm going to go ahead and double check the caster and set the toe, and should be done. All right, so after you do your camber and then your caster, you're on to the toe. You always want to do the toe last. So what I've done is I like to extend both of my tape measures to the exact same length, just so they kind of fall on the floor in the same spot. And you're just going to set these plates up. So right now we're at 78 and about 3/8 up here. In the back we're at 77 and almost 78. So we are way toed out. So the idea, we're going to go for about 0.32 in. So we're looking for a 1/32 of an in, which is 0.08 inches. So we just want it barely towed in. And so that's pretty tight to get 30 seconds on a tape measure, but we're going to give it a shot. So this is the only one that I like to do on the ground. I broke free the lock nuts on the tie rods, but now I'm getting under there with a 13 millimeter, and you can feel it, and I'm just doing quarter turns at a time and then checking it. So right now I know I need to screw this one in to make that tire go that way. So we'll do a quarter turn. Another one. It's a little tricky. Half. The 3/4 of a turn. After that last adjustment, it was really close. So what I did, reset both plates, double check that both plates have it's still touching here and here, and then we set them here. So if you look at this one, and the angle of the camera is not right, but when you look straight down, this one is 1/32 less than 78 inches. This one over here is dead at 7/8. So that means that we are towed in. It's wider up front than it is rear by a 32nd of an inch, which means we are towed in by 0.08. Now you still might have to tweak this, because like now I'm going to go drive it, and I guarantee the steering wheel is going to be just like a hair to the left or right. It's going to bug me. And then what you can do is just simply adjust the tie rods a 1/16 of a turn in on one side and out on the other side to tweak it perfectly. Hey, and before I continue, can you guys do me a favor and hit that like button? For some reason, YouTube uses that as their method to suggest it to other people. So if you prefer car videos like this over cat videos in your feed, that'll help it get to more people. Anyway, the Mercedes is aligned. It came out great. The steering wheel is straight. The car drives perfectly straight. Most importantly, those front wheels are now within spec. We got about 1.4, 1.45 degrees of camber, negative camber. And then the caster set to about 8 1/4 and then toe. So I realized I didn't go into an extreme in-depth 3-hour-long video into this, but I'm hoping I showed you enough that you can kind of figure out how to do this on your own with those plates and those bolts. Basically the cliff notes is, yes, set the camber first. After the camber set the caster. After you set the caster, tweak the camber, and then you're gonna have to come back and maybe tweak the caster. Once those are done, then set the tow, and you're finished. Now, could I have taken this to some place? And if you have a car that's not messed with, like not lowered like mine, I probably would suggest going to somewhere else. You can get it done quick. However, if your car is lowered, you're going to find not a lot of people want to actually work on it. A dealer might be hesitant, and then the independent shops might not know what they're doing. Plus, my dealer is like an hour and a half away, and you got to make an appointment and then sit in the lobby for like 3 hours. It would have been an all-day ordeal anyway. So by doing it myself, I probably broke even on the time. But like I said, I enjoy working on these. That's why I'm making this video. I was out here doing it anyway. Now I'm putting it on camera so you guys can watch. It wasn't like I did anything extra. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Put some comments in the bottom below if you have any future content you want to see. Thanks again for watching.